Okay. We're ready? Martine, we ready? Yep. Perfect. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. How are you?
We good.
Good. Welcome to ATHE 2026. We are here. I'm Deron S. Williams. I am VP of Conference 2026. So excited to be here. First, I want to say thank you to my wonderful planning committee. If you're here, can you please stand to be acknowledged? I also want to give a deep thanks to Amy and Devin for all of the logistics, making sure the hotel is organized. Thank you for guiding me through this process that I did not know I was stepping into. I also want to say thank you to the governing council, to the membership, to all of the focus group leadership teams for helping me put this together, selecting some wonderful sessions, and just making all of this possible, and for you all for attending and making this gathering what it is today. So give yourselves a round of applause. So this year, as we gather under the theme Activating Imagination in Community and Community, we are invited not only to imagine together, but to consider how imagination itself becomes an action, how it moves, builds, disrupts, and sustains the communities we inhabit and create. The N asks us to look inward to the values and practices that shape us. The and calls us outward towards collective responsibility and shared possibility. As we open this conference, we also center a question: what does it mean to stand in imagination and in community at the same time, especially when leadership requires both vision and accountability? How do we activate not just what we can see, but what we are willing to build together? It is in this spirit that we turn to our keynote conversation, Standing Center Stage, Leadership and the Labor of Justice. And we're honored to welcome Stevie Walker-Webb, Ken Matt Martin, and our moderator and ATHE president, Martine Kei Green-Rogers. Three leaders whose work embodies the ongoing practice of activating imagination in community and community through leadership grounded in equity, care, and transformation. Please give our conversationalists a round of applause. Words. It's all yours.
Thank you, Deron. I really appreciate it. Can we just give Deron one more round of applause? So as a person who has run a couple of different service organizations to the field, this is the easiest conference that I have ever been a part of as a leader because Deron did everything. I didn't even, and it's one of those moments where he is so organized that there were moments when I would just say, oh, I kind of wonder what's going on with the conference, and then magically he would show up in my email, be like, oh, it's about time for a conference update, and I'm like, how did you know? So I am just in so much gratitude for the work that you have done and the collaboration that you have done with everyone to make an amazingly beautiful and just like rewarding conference. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So, as mentioned before, I am Martine Kei Green-Rogers, she, her. I am the president of ATHE, and I am also the dean of the theater school at DePaul University, and a freelance dramaturg. I have to remember to say that because the creative practice part is important. And I am with some amazing humans on this stage to have a conversation today. So just so you know, these people are amazingly accomplished, so bear with me as I read through their amazingly exciting bios. So on our far end is Stevie Walker-Webb, who is a Tony-nominated, Obie Award-winning director, playwright, and cultural worker who believes in the transformational power of art. I promise I can talk. He is a recipient of the Princess Grace Award for Theater, the Lilly Award by the Dramatists Guild of America, and the 2050 Fellow at the New York Theater Workshop. He is an artist and lecturer at Harvard University and is the founding artistic director of the Jubilee Theater in Waco, Texas. He has written for the BET Emmy-nominated hit show, The Miss Pat Show. He is the founder of Hundreds of Thousands, an arts and advocacy organization that makes visual the suffering and inhumane treatment of incarcerated mentally ill people. In addition to this, Stevie has created art and theater in Madagascar, South Africa, Mexico, and across America. Stevie has been twice selected as a New York Times Critics' Pick, and his work has been commissioned by the American Civil Liberties Union and National Black Theater. His work has been produced on and off Broadway. Selected productions include Wanted, a Broadway Fall 2026. How you had time for this? I just saw the date on that. Ain't No More, the Public Theater and Broadway, Gun and Powder, Paper Mill Playhouse, and for those of you who didn't know, Gun and Powder was, Wanted, it was formerly called Gun and Powder. 1 and 2, the new group, Black Odyssey at Classic Stage, Fairview at Woolly Mammoth, and Our Town at Baltimore Center Stage. Please welcome Stevie. Ken Matt Martin has established himself as a preeminent theater director, cultural worker, and collaborator who has worked with some of the industry's most formidable artists. Notable directing credits include productions of August Wilson's Fences and The Piano Lesson at Pyramid Theater Company, the Chicago premiere of How I Learned What I Learned at Congo Square Theater Company starring Harry Lennox, A Son Come Home and Brotherhood at Williamstown Theater Festival, how do I say this last name? I don't want to. Oh, well, then it's not just me.
I can't pronounce it either. It's okay.
Okay. Adaptation of Cheryl Strayed's Tiny Beautiful Things at Baltimore Center Stage, the world premiere of Nancy at Mosaic Theater Company, Hello Dolly at Arkansas Repertory Theater starring Amber Iman, and the world premiere musical adaptation of Jason Reynolds' Long Way Down at Olney Theater Center and New York Apollo Theater. His directorial work has been honored with 3 Cloris Leachman Excellence in Theater Awards, Michigan's Oscar Wilde Award for Best Director, and Chicago's Baca Black Excellence Award for Outstanding Director. His work as a producer was recognized with a Bravo Greater Des Moines Standing Ovation Award, amongst others. A highly sought-after thought leader, he has served in key positions at Victory Gardens Theater, rest in peace, Goodman Theater, and Williamstown Theater Festival. He is currently the producing director at both Baltimore Center Stage and Arkansas Repertory Theater. He holds an MFA in directing from Brown University and degrees in musical theater and journalism from Drake University. He is a recipient of the New Harmony Project Artist in Residence Fellowship, a Keep Going commission by Baltimore Center Stage, a Drake University Guest Artist in Residence, and the Bill Fuller Directing Fellowship, and he is a proud member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity and SDC. Thank you for joining us, Ken Matt. I mean, it's hard being accomplished.
That bio was long, mine. I'm like, I need to shorten that. Whoa.
Same.
Look, sometimes you just got to give people their props.
I don't know where y'all got that from.
Him. He wrote it for me. So I broke this conversation into 3 parts, and part 1 is about your story. So we're just gonna have a moment where you just tell us a little bit, just tell us a story, tell us your story. How did you become the leaders of Baltimore Center Stage? Take us on the journey of how you came to be there.
I have to go first. Good morning, everyone. So my journey with Baltimore Center Stage, Stevie and I's journeys are actually kind of intertwined in a lot of ways. We both first came to Baltimore Center Stage as guest artists, first and foremost. I had a commission and was there in residency. Stevie has directed a couple of plays there prior to being in leadership. And then when Stephanie Ibarra, the now former artistic director, left, she asked me, and the board asked me to step in as interim artistic director. And so I arrived in 2023, February of 2023, to serve as interim artistic director. And it coincided with Stevie's production of Life is a Dream. which he was directing while he got said Tony nomination and everything else. And we both kind of looked at each other because they were looking for a permanent leader. And at the time, I had just left Chicago and yet come here to be the interim. And I said, I am not interested, thank you very much. And truly was not interested, did not want to be in leadership anywhere or do anything other than just work as an artist at the time. So I did not apply, I was not interested. And then Stevie did decide to apply, and then he got the role as artistic director. And then he asked me to stay. And consult. And I said, sure, I'll give you a year, and we see how that turned out. So that's the Cliff Notes version, I think. I don't know, Stevie, how you would color in the rest of it. I'm paraphrasing and trying to hit the highlights.
That's great. The other part of the story is that as an artist, you a kind of freelance director, you're constantly moving from city to city to city. And when I came to Baltimore for the first time, I was walking from Station North. I was late, like I was this morning, here, and I was walking from Station North down to Mount Vernon, and even though I was late, I stopped in like a coffee shop on the way. I stopped at a bookstore on the way, and then by the time I got to Center Stage, I was like, "This city is incredible. This city is so amazing." I fell in love with Baltimore. And so then every season, I would come back here, and my agent was like, why are you turning down jobs in other places to go make art in Baltimore? And I was like, I don't know, there's something about this city. And so at the time that Stephanie Barr was getting ready to go on to Mellon, and as Kim had said, the job opened up, I met Kim Matt here. Is that my mic doing that?
I don't know. Is it me?
Maybe, let me see. Okay, so I met Kim Matt around the same time that I was meeting the city, and I was like, there's a particular, thank you so much, there's a particular magic here, and
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a particular magic here, and so I had to stay. Yeah.
So let's talk about the vision. What was your vision, both of you, individually, because you had time as an interim, which is always an interesting position to be in, and then also you coming in. What was the vision for Baltimore Center Stage when you arrived?
I think to your point about being an interim, and I've done it now a few times, it's actually the thing that I was kind of focused on when I first came here, when I wasn't interested in a permanent leadership role. Listen, I won't mince words. In the same way that many universities, your respective programs, everything else are under attack, having to fight every day sometimes to try to figure out how to keep things moving, right? When you're coming in as an interim into an organization, even after Stephanie's incredible leadership, it was still during a difficult time, just as COVID was still running rampant, just for context. And so it was about survival when I first came there. And then the truth is that as Stevie got hired and then asked me to stick around and stay and consult, what has kind of blossomed and bloomed from that is a shared vision that we have and a love that we have for this city. I mean, this really, really is our home now. We've both been here for about 3 years. It's not public yet, but will be announced soon. We both have just signed contract extensions and are staying here till at least 2030. So the vision that kind of bloomed from that was a genuine love for this city. And we're both Southern boys originally, and I think there's a lot that we find in this city that feels very similar to where and how we grew up. And so the idea that we could impact, in particular, the lives of the young people in this city, the biggest and greatest thing that we've been able to accomplish is that we have completely expanded what are all of our varied educational offerings, and that's at every level of the institution, from professional development opportunities for folks who might be post their undergraduate life or maybe didn't even go to some form of higher education, through the Governor's Service Year program. And in addition to that, the programs that we have for K through 12 students, including our juvenile justice program, which I'll let Stevie talk more about. but the shared vision of saying, all right, this is a city that we believe can have a world-class theater, should have a world-class theater, and can be a beacon to the entire country, was the key thing, in addition to making sure that in doing so, we were making it possible for those little kids out there who might look like you and I, where education, and the theatrical education specifically, was our escape to be able to get to where we are. That was the big part of the vision that was really, really clear for both of us. And I think we got to it naturally by way of saying, wait, we really love it here. How can we impact this city and this state? Because Baltimore Center Stage is actually the state theater of Maryland. So how do we also impact the entire state, not just the city of Baltimore? And so that was a big part of it. And then in addition to that, when you talk about the vision of it all, Stevie then went really, really big with the juvenile justice program in particular, which we're very, very proud of. So I'm gonna let you say more about how we came to that.
Yeah, I tend to bite off more than I can chew. I'm one of those people, when you go to the buffet, I walk away with like 3 plates. It's like, how is he gonna eat all of that? But I think about Dr. King. Fred Newman wrote this book, and there's a chapter in the book inspired by one of Dr. King's speeches, and the chapter is called "Community as a Heart in a Havenless World." And I think about the theater as a church in the wild, as a beating heart that is at the center of the body politic, if you will. And if we're not trying to legislate, we can't legislate, we're artists, but we can have a conversation with each play that we have with our community to try to move the community in a certain direction, to try to create an intersection. And we all know this, y'all all know this, to try to create an intersection where disparate viewpoints can coexist. And to do that, it demands a kind of capacity and an openness for dissension, for conflict, for varying viewpoints. We're constantly trying to serve the most privileged parts of our community and the most marginalized parts of our community at the same time. We take being a state theater so seriously. And so even our season this year, I've had people email me and be like, "What the hell are y'all doing? What's the through line? Y'all going all over the place." And it's like, because we're trying to create a season and offerings that reflect the diversity of this really culturally rich city that we live in. And a part of that is offering programs like our summer camp. So many theaters do that, which is amazing. And being intentional to scholarship half of the students in our summer camp, so that kids who live in certain neighborhoods who wouldn't encounter kids who live in other neighborhoods get to play together, because that kind of cultural cross-pollination, if you will, has to begin as early as it can, so that we don't end up, so they don't create a future like the one that we live in right now, you know? And so when I got here, when I moved here 3.5, almost 4 years ago, I live in the Patterson Park, Highlandtown neighborhood. I love my neighborhood. And Baltimore is this incredible city, but I couldn't turn on the news without watching reports about the juvenile crime that we had in our city. And I didn't like the framing around that. And so I said, I want to do something about that. I went to my board, and we're really fortunate. We have a board here that is so incredibly supportive. It's a very, very diverse board. So many women on our board. I love the fact that the people that I have to answer to are women, because I think they lead and think differently.
And mostly black women, to be clear.
It's really incredible.
Yes.
Yeah. And so when I went to the board and was like, I want to do something about that, the board didn't blink. They said, absolutely. And so we were able to find resources. We didn't find enough resources to launch the juvenile justice program. And so I said, okay, well, I'll go in with our incredible teaching artists, Hope Henson and Aaron Pettigrew, who are our associates of education. And the three of us, every Tuesday night, went into the juvenile detention center that's nearest to our building. And every Tuesday night, I was like, I loved it. I was able to get out of board meetings, get out of all kinds of stuff, and be like, I got to go to jail. So every Tuesday night, I went into the juvenile detention centers near our building, and we built a curriculum, and then we slowly began to scale that curriculum out. And what's really awesome about the state of Maryland at this time is that our governor, Wes Moore, and our First Lady Dawn Moores, she sits on the board of the theater for Baltimore Center Stage. And so as we begin to build this program and expand it, she was able to be a champion for the expansion of that program, because it sits at the heart of one of the missions that he has, which is to reduce recidivism for young folks in our city. And so there's this kind of kismet thing that's happening where the leaders, our board is supportive. I have a brother who's deeply connected to, we share our vision and mission, so there's no fight on the front or backside of the house and how we work. And in fact, it's quite a virtuous circle. And then, the city is receptive to it. It's just really been a complete, I feel like we're in a bubble almost, because so much of our country is on fire and so much of our industry is on fire. But we're able to create this, I call Baltimore Center Stage a city on a hill. And I just feel really blessed to be here in this particular moment, in this seat. Yeah.
No, it's really our Wakanda, I always say. And we aren't letting the barriers down, so it's nice that you all visited. But truly, that bubble that we're in, it's a really beautiful time to be here, where the synergy of what our mayor, our governor are trying to do is something that we believe in, and that we're trying to aid through the power of a theatrical education, because that's the through line as well.
I really appreciate the fact that you're obviously doing the work, and also the way you're framing and talking about it. And part of the reason why, as an educator, I have a lot of students. Part of our mission at DePaul is to create globally conscious artists. And a lot of our students are worried about the future of what this industry looks like, because all we talk about at this point is money, and not necessarily the service part. And not that, obviously, they want to pay their bills, so I don't want to downplay some of that, but I think one of the things that I've actively been talking to our students and our community about is, how do we continue? Yes, we do need to talk about the finances of how we do the work, but we also need to talk about the work and recenter around that. So it's just really inspiring to hear what you two are doing, and how you can hear the passion in your voices as you talk about that work. These are the kinds of things I'm going to have to make sure that I send this to my students, to make sure I preface it with, I'm not making you watch this because I'm leading the conversation, but because maybe you just need to hear this. So one of the things that I want to talk about a little bit is, we all know that we are in constant moments of pivot. So how has the vision changed at all? And if it has, how?
I don't know that the vision has changed. Now the approach.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, so the vision is twofold, just to say it succinctly, right? Which is, our education initiatives, the way that we're trying to intersect with what's happening in this state and the city, is really important. And then the other side of that is to be that beacon, to show that Baltimore, as a city, can be a place that world-class art, and art that means something, can be born. So we're very proud of the fact that, for example, in the past couple of years, in Stevie and I's tenure, we've been able to premiere Jordan E. Cooper's Oh Happy Day, which then went straight on to the public and had a very successful run at the Public Theater. We also, which I'm very, very proud of, were able to give the world premiere of this incredible show called Mexodus, which I have a which I have a very long history with, after giving it its first workshop at Victory Gardens when I was in Chicago. And so when I look at those two shows in particular, the pivots I think that we've had to make is that we've been really, really fortunate, I think, to find ways to make work that we both really, really care about, that have something important to say, while also balancing, figuring out how to do these big education initiatives and everything else. And then a newer thing that's starting for us is we're now having to play with a lot more commercially enhanced productions in terms of our season, to just help literally keep everything in alignment so that we can keep doing everything else that we want to do. So an example of that would be this musical extravaganza that we're premiering at the end of the season this year. That we're very excited about, has some commercial producers, and is about the founding of the House of Extravaganza. So still meets our mission, right, by being able to tell a story about trans and non-binary folks and the ways in which in the 1980s in particular they had to create the community they needed to survive. So still feels mission aligned, and yet at the same time is a bit of a pivot for us, because while we've done shows that have found great success after us, we're now having to be a little bit more intentional about going to find those shows that come with money in order to continue to sustain, the organization as a whole. So that's one pivot to continue to make sure that we can meet that shared vision that I can think of in terms of our approach, which has its ups and downs for sure, but.
Yeah, and when we talk about money and why we do what we do and how we animate what we do, I love to talk about the fact that I share with people that where I am is not where I started in my life. I grew up like dirt po in like the middle of like Central Texas, Waco.
I'm actually just enjoying the fact that it wasn't poor, it was po.
It was po. It was po. My father is a disabled Marine. My mother had to quit working to help support, to be a stay-at-home mom. My mother and father had 6 children, and we're trying to figure out how to navigate life on a fixed income because my father had served his country, and the country was trying to figure out how to help take care of him. And that was the fight that took decades. And I love to share the story about how I became a theater practitioner. My mom stole an address from, we were living in one part of town. There was better schools on the other part of town. The schools in my part of town didn't have any theater programs. The schools on the other side of town did. And my mother knew that she had a gang of artists in her house. And she was trying to figure out how to get us access to what the other kids had. So she would drive around this neighborhood that we could not afford to live in, and we would imagine living in those houses as children. And my mom was like, you know what? I'm gonna take this imagination a little bit further. I'm gonna just steal that address and say we live there so y'all can go to school down the street from this house. Well, she likes to say she borrowed the address. And so we were at that time, and there was a time of what they call neighborhood schools, which is apartheid again, right? And so, but she borrowed that address, and she would drive me and all 5 of my siblings across town. My first 2 sisters, they knew how to behave, and I didn't. And so when I got to school, they were like, one of these don't belong here. And then they were like, well, we should put him on medication. And my mom was like, we're not putting my child on medication. And long story short, she decided that what I needed was a box to sit inside of. So she convinced my teacher to let her take a refrigerator box and put it around my desk. And they must have thought my mom was crazy. But she knew what she was doing. They took my desk and they put my desk in the back of the class, and they put a refrigerator box around it. And my mom cut a huge rectangle out of the front of that box. I was given crayons. I got a little Teddy Ruxpin bear. I got special snacks. And she said, you can do whatever you want as long as you finish your work, you don't make no noise, and you don't leave this box. And that became the first proscenium arc from which I was able to visualize the world through. So when my teacher would narrate stories and I was having a hard time envisioning it, I would draw tableaus inside the box. When it was like the first camera I ever held was that box. And when I got stumped in a math problem, I would literally narrate, because for me, I understand numbers through stories. And so I would narrate those numbers on the inside of that box. And if over the summer, we would have to refresh that box. The kids called me Box Kid for a couple of years, and then eventually they also wanted a box, because we all have a divergency. But what I learned from that, my vision hasn't changed from that moment. My mother knew that I was an artist, but she also was, she understood that we didn't have what the other kids had on the outside, but on the inside, I was just like those other kids. And so my life has been about trying to figure out how to create a box for other people to get outside of the box that's bigger than them, that over-labels them and over-determines who they can be. And so the vision of Baltimore Center Stage is still that. Whether that is a donor who doesn't understand that their wealth has put them in a box that they're looking at the world through out of, and they actually need someone to help them illustrate from the inside so they can get on the outside of it, or if it's a kid in our juvenile justice program who literally is living in a 6-by-9 foot box because they made a mistake 2 years ago when they were 12 or 13 or 14, and suddenly the world has labeled them as something that they're so much bigger than. And so the vision, I credit the vision of who I am with my very, my mother who's a genius. The vision of who I am and the vision of the theater is somehow connected all the way back to that. And thank y'all for going on that journey with me. I know it was very, very bonus.
I really appreciate that story, mostly because in a lot of ways I resonate with that. I ended up in theater when I was 4 because my grandmother thought I had way too much energy and not a constructive place to put it. And so he was like, we got to do something with this girl. And, you know, we grew up very, we did not have a lot of resources either growing up. And so I didn't find out until I was filling out the paperwork to go to school that my grandmother had not bought herself anything to wear new the entire time I was a child. And so the sacrifices that are made and the ingenuity that is made to try and support children is just something that I think is amazing, because look at you. You're an amazing human. You're doing amazing work. And it's because your mother was like, yes, we're going to do that. We're gonna figure out how to make this work. And we're not going to necessarily medicate the mess out of you in order to get there either. We're just going to figure out how to work with you and meet you where you are. So that's just a really inspiring story, I think, especially for a room full of educators.
And I want to say thank you and thank your mother and all of y'all that are out here figuring out how to take the little bit that you have, the little resources you have, whether or not that's in a classroom or at a major institution or in a community, to try to create opportunities for young people, whether they have a lot or don't have, or have a lot in a different way. Like, thank y'all. Like, y'all are on the front freaking lines. Y'all are on the front lines. We are on the front lines of trying to shift the culture. People who choose to work in this industry, I think sometimes we're least of all concerned about money. You know what I mean? We live in a capitalistic society, so we have to live with that, deal with that. And it's like when I'm talking to the next generation, I encourage them from my place of, and I have to be mindful I have a place of privilege now, but I encourage them to, like, don't let the money be the driving decision in what you choose to do. You can't take it with you. You can't take none of it with you. And your legacy is not going to be defined by how much money you made, but it's like what Maya Angelou said. People might forget how you treated, what you did for them, what you gave them, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. They'll never forget how you treated them. And that has to be what we're most invested and care most about. And so thank y'all for doing that. Y'all keep loving the kids, because it's like it's folks like y'all that y'all are somehow a part of our story and our journey too, right? I remember being at the New School for Drama and being one of the only African-American students in my program at that time, and feeling that deep isolation. And it was just one teacher, Karen Ludwig, this old Jewish lady who was, you know, Lord have mercy, she wrote a one-woman show called Where Was I? To tell you who she is, what type of thinker she is. But this old Jewish lady who understood the isolation that I was feeling and understood the poverty that I was navigating at that time as an MFA student, and found all these little bitty invisible ways to care for my personhood. And so, like, y'all keep doing that. Y'all keep doing what y'all do, because it makes a difference in so many small ways and in so many big ways too. But I know y'all already know that.
It's so true. And it's interesting that you talk about it that way, because back to the sort of inspiring part of it, one of the things that I think about a lot is how did I become the human I became? I was actually just giving someone that I'm going to shout out for a second a good hard time about the fact that I owe everything to her for talking to me about the fact that there is a field called dramaturgy that exists, because Dr. Sally Shedd, I know you're out there, where are you? There she is. In undergrad, put me on a path that made me the human that I am now. And even in that same way, I'm looking at my advisor from my grad program, Dr. Patrick Tewitt, and he was the one that said, maybe you should think about going into education. So all of a sudden, these two people created the monster that is here on this stage today. And I am forever in debt to those two humans. So I am appreciating this conversation mostly because it reminds us how the labor that we do in all different ways that we can never imagine impact the other humans around us. So I'm so loving this. So well, maybe it's not a quick question. Let's call it a little bit of a rapid fire, mostly because one of the things that I've noticed in this conversation that we've been having so far since the conference started, and some of it I just want to shout out Danielle Drake's over there because her panel started this for me, was thinking about definitions and how there are words that we use that we throw out at conferences like this, and all of the definitions we have for them are rooted in the same sort of central definition, but how we are internalizing them, how we are turning them into practice becomes slightly different. So I'm going to give you a couple of words, and I'm curious, how do you define them in terms of the work that you are doing at Baltimore Center Stage? I love how wide Stevie's eyes just got. What does collective action mean in terms of the work that you're doing at Baltimore Center Stage? There's a very silent conversation.
We have a lot of conversations with no words. A lot. I think the big thing I think of when I think about collective action, particularly at Baltimore Center Stage, is that our staff, my God, our staff is, we always say, the hardest working, most incredible staff in the American theater. We love them so dearly. And they, thankfully, we're one of the theaters that still has a scene shop, a costume shop, where, the show that we're currently working on that Stevie's directing has a chicken costume in it, and they have cut and hand-dyed and dipped hundreds of feathers, fake feathers. And when you have staff that work that hard and are that dedicated, the other thing that I'm very proud of when I think about collective action is that they move as a unit. There's a lot of moments and times where they come to us, Stevie and I, and say, hi, so we're doing this. And me and Stevie have to say, okay, I guess that's what we're doing, in a beautiful way. And I think it speaks to both the spirit of collaboration that we try to engender across the entire organization, and more importantly, their way of working together, because true collective action takes struggle, right? Like you don't get to a place where people are actually moving together. I mean, that's the thing. Steve and I both come from protest and activist backgrounds at the end of the day. So like literally speaking, when you bring up something like collective action, I think about the time I've spent, both of us, literally protesting and being arrested and all the other crazy things that we've had to do when it was time to speak out with large groups of people. And yet, in the context of Center Stage, I think that spirit of activism, that spirit of mischievousness even sometimes, that can exist amongst our staff and saying, no, I know you all said you think we should do it this way. We're actually going to do it this way. And me and Stevie have to then adhere to that and move with them. And I think that's actually really important, in the same way that we are very, very intentional about how we work with the artists that we bring in, because we're also a unique situation in that as executive leaders of this institution, we are both artists, and that is rare, and we're aware of that, but we are very proud of it. And artists know how to organize better than anybody. So that's what I think of when I think about collective action, the way that our entire staff and our board also falls in line as well, and that's rare. So that's what comes up for me. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we both try to build a space as leaders where anybody in on our staff can say anything to us, and they do. I mean, it's like it's like, who's the leader here? But that's how I know that we're doing the work, when they can speak to us candidly. But how many of you have ever been to a headphone party, like a silent dance party? Oh, y'all gotta live a little bit more.
Yes.
At a silent dance party, the way that I like to do it, I play this game sometimes when I feel stuck, either administratively with my team or in a rehearsal room. People bring headphones to work because it's like, okay, we are disagreeing, we are having a hard time. Let's all put our headphones on. You pick the song you want to listen to. Don't pick no 15-minute song now. Pick the song that you want to listen to. I'm going to pick the song that I want to listen to, and let's all just dance in the silence together to our own rhythm, to our own beat. And then in the exercise, I asked the people, if you picked a 5-minute song and I picked a 3-minute song, when my song is up, I take my headphones off and I stand in the silence and I just watch the way that maybe you picked the slow groove and somebody else is going wop, 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 wop. But you stand there in the silence and you pay attention to how your co-laborers are moving. What kind of rhythm are they dancing on that day, in that moment? And to me, that is what collective action is. We're all in the party together, but we all might be grooving to a different tune. But we also all decided to be here, so we also all want to dance. And so we have to figure out how we can dance together, but allow space for everyone's individual rhythm. And I can't get mad if your rhythm is different than mine if you're at the party. And I think that we've somehow lost that ability to dance in that way. And so somehow that's my definition of collective action.
Fantastic. I wonder if that's a perfect segue into my next definition that I'd love to throw at the two of you, which is, what is community building?
It's fighting. It's fighting with each other until we can understand. We don't have to agree, but until we can at least understand how we hold our difference. Yeah.
For me, it's yes, and I mean it's definitely fighting until we can get there, and you and I, we do that. Yes, but for me, it's also more pragmatic. I live in Mount Vernon, 3 blocks from our theater, and so the thing that brings me the most joy in terms of just like baseline community building, right, is that often these institutions are existing in these places where they forget about the people right next to them. And so something that Stevie and I both are very intentional about is that we are actually in the community here at all times, between all of the different places across the city. But even more importantly, because I live in the neighborhood, you know, it's where I also eat and have my like different haunts of places that I go and visit. So a lot of the local restaurants and bars and whatnot, the bartenders, the waiters and everything, I give them tickets for free to come see all of the shows, to previews. And it's something I've been doing now since I've been here very intentionally, because I'm like, well, okay, if the people right here in our own neighborhood don't want to come see the work or don't feel inspired or don't feel like they can see the work, often many of them are not theater people. They do not care about what we are doing. And yet, just because someone is willing to say like, hey, you know this building over here, like we do plays and stuff, like come see it. And so that has been a really, really huge integral part of the literal community building that I think we're doing. And that's just like one example of many that I can think of between the two of us, where we're very intentional about saying like, hey, this is a community that we are actively trying to build that can include everyone. But in order to do that, you have to go find the people who aren't looking for it. Because at this juncture in particular, I don't know about you, but like I love my couch. I have every streaming service. I got Netflix, I got Prime, everything but Paramount Plus. I'm not fooling with them right now. But like, you know, but like it is hard. I do this for a living, and I don't want to leave my house to go see a play. So Seriously. And so because I am much happier and knowing that like at the moment for theaters, our main competition, quote unquote, is not one another, it is Netflix, right? Like how are we literally actively trying to get people to value what it means to come and see live performance? It's a real thing that we have to work on. And so for me, that community building is literally just offering up the opportunity because at this juncture, and that's not unique to this city or what we have going on in our neighborhood in Mount Vernon, there are a lot of these folks who I'm talking to, these bartenders, everything else, the waiters and the wait staff at these different restaurants that I might frequent in the neighborhood. And they're looking at me and they're like, you're always in here. And I'm like, yeah, I work around the corner. I live here. And then they'll be like, so what do you do? And then I try to explain it and they have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. And they don't care. And so then me actively saying like, well, yeah, it's a play. And then occasionally we have famous people in some of our plays. So that doesn't hurt. When I'm like, you want to come see Lena Waithe or Kaylin Allen? And they're like, sure, I know who that is. And I'm like, great. Okay, step one. And so that is the level of community building that I think we're doing. It's true, like one by one step at a time, getting to the people and trying to help the people understand that like this is an opportunity for you to experience something different. You always talk about the church in the wild. And as you know, I'm a PK, I'm a pastor's kid, and my little brother is also a pastor. So I'm the only person in my immediate family that is not a minister of some
You
sort.
still be preaching.
Yeah.
Maybe you are a minister, just not of that kind.
I got a different pulpit, but you know, but the baseline of it, and me and my brother and my father get into arguments about this frequently because they're always talking about their mission, their thing that they do is to try to save souls, and I'm like, that's great. I'm some souls out here I'm not gonna try, but like, but what I do take from that is like this idea. My mission is like I truly believe that the arts can and should be used as a catalyst for social change. Period. And so being able to think about spreading the good word, if you will, in a different way, right? Of what it means to be like, just come and take in this live performance. See people in front of you. Understand the artistry and the mastery that has to go into making this thing happen. Like, sure, come see this play because there's a famous person in it, but know that that chicken costume had somebody who hand-dyed all them damn feathers, right? And so that to me is also community building, is like when you can help illuminate and give the opportunities to folks who otherwise wouldn't even be thinking about what it is that we do because they don't care, because they can like sit on their phone and watch a million different stories. What's so special about this story that makes them want to leave their house and get off their couch? And so often it's about a personal relationship. And that's what community building is to me.
Can I tease you really fast? Because you said you don't be trying to save souls, and that is a complete lie. Because I'm about to out you. So the other part of that building community, which you're so rigorous about, is it's also making sure that people. This theater's been here for 63 years. Baltimore Center Stage is an incredible institution. And Kim and I are making it cool in a completely different way than it was. We changing the vibe of Center Stage. And there are folks who stewarded this theater for many decades before we got here. And some of them were like, some of our subscribers were like, we walking away because this don't got, whatever they doing don't have anything to do with us. But they care so much that they'll write us angry letters. And he cares so much about building community that if he gets one of those angry letters, and you know it's one of those people who like cuss you out and then they slowly walk out the door because they want you to chase them. Because they'll leave their phone number at the bottom of their angry letter. And he, in all of his busyness, will find the time to call those folks and say like, okay, maybe you didn't like that play that had 50,000 cuss words in it because the writer is angry and working through something. But the next play might be something that you enjoy. And would you come back to see the play again and maybe attend to talk back and argue with the artist about it? And they'll say, sure, I'll come back. And the point is again to rigorously build a community where you're going to barbershops and bartenders and the next generation who thinks that theater doesn't have anything to do with them, and creating an environment where they can feel like it's theirs, but also asking the people that's been on the bus forever not to get off the bus, because we're still going in the same direction. It might feel a little different, it might look a little different, but you know, most of the time, those folks, we be so quick to like say, that person is this. And it's like sometimes they just feel left behind. Sometimes they just feel like the culture is changing the way that I got a new phone, and Jesus, I'm finally at that age where I'm like, stop with the technology. I went to a J. Cole concert last night.
It was so...
I almost couldn't get in the door because I was like, what is Ticketmaster doing? And like, and so we have to empathize as we're trying to build the new vision, that we keep bringing everybody along, and you do that so well, brother. I don't know how you find the time to do it, but you live that politic, and I just want to say, we get to be who we are down at Center Stage because you are who you are in every moment, and I appreciate you. Just want to say that.
I love this. I've got one more definition for you, and then we're going to start winding it down and then open it up to questions from our audience. So here's my last phrase I would like you to define: creative resilience.
Listen here. Listen here. I think, so you and I, we share a lot of things in common. We joke about how we are the same person on parallel, like if you're Marvel fans, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
alternative
universes. Yeah, we're in alternative universes often, and we just got so lucky that we got to be together because one of the things we share, there's two unique things that when we first met, we really bonded about. Just like Stevie mentioned earlier, I was only the second black man with a decade in between to go through my MFA directing program, just like he was at the new school. So both of us, when we were in our respective graduate school programs, were the only ones and the first in a long time, and people didn't know what the hell to do with us. And then the other thing that we share is that prior to said graduate school experience, we both started theater companies. His company in Waco, Jubilee, my company, Pyramid, in Des Moines, that we were founders of, that are still going strong without us to this day, which we're very proud of. And so when you talk about creative resilience, the truth of it is like Stevie and I are just the type, we don't mind getting our hands dirty. Because when we started said companies, we were down there building the sets.
Dumpster diving.
Ourselves, you know, like, we're both writers and directors and have to sometimes figure out, like, all right, cool, what's the pivot in this moment in terms of just being like, we have to keep going as the artists that we are first and foremost. And the same is still true at Center Stage. Like, we did something crazy this past year where we had, in one night, it's something we're very proud of. So we did the world premiere of this play called Trinity by Lena Waithe, which he also starred in, that Stevie directed. And its first weekend of previews, we also had the comedian Miss Pat come and film a live special that's going to end up on a streaming service, but a live comedy special. And those two things fell in the same weekend because we're crazy. And Miss Pat, it was sold out. She did 4 sold-out shows over a 48-hour period, and Lena's show was also sold out, and it was the first weekend of previews, and there were 3 shows that she had between 3 previews. So we, that one weekend in that 48 hours, had something crazy like almost 4,000 people in our building between our 2 respective theaters and spaces. And when you talk about creative resilience, that was a very intense period for the staff and everything else. But Stevie and I are the type where we're like, okay, yeah, this is going to be a hard, crazy day. So he's upstairs in tech trying to get this show over the line. I'm downstairs with his Pat and her team trying to get this streaming service going. And then when the night is over, it's like 1 a.m. by the time, because Pat decided last minute to do a meet and greet with all of her fans. And then Lena is trying to leave the building. There's crazy stuff going on. And our staff is like, we have to go home. And we're like, yep, you're right. So what does that mean in terms of creative resilience? It meant Stevie and I were downstairs striking lights, you know, mopping up and sweeping backstage, because we also are the kind of leaders, like, we've never been afraid to get our hands dirty. And it's not for, at this point, as you say, we're both in very privileged positions. And yet the truth is like, we are still just the same little country boys I think we always have been, to just say like, no, we have to get it done because it's important. And during that weekend, the other thing that was beautiful is that about 80-ish% of those people who were coming to see both of those things had never walked through the doors at Center Stage before, ever. So that's creative resilience, to say, we're gonna do something. This is probably crazy, but the resilience that it takes to look at our whole staff, and we weren't the only ones. There were other people, other senior staffers, junior staffers, who stayed and did that labor with us, who did not have to, and we kept telling them to go home and they wouldn't. But that is the resilience that I think, going back to collective action, what is community building? We've built that kind of community and have the moment where that collective action, everybody in their own rhythm, but like, we were all moving together. And so that's how that correlates to me.
I think creative resilience is doing it anyway. Do it anyway. If there's something that you feel needs to be done in your community, there's gonna be 10,000 reasons you shouldn't do it. Someone's gonna say that doesn't make sense, and maybe it don't. It'll make sense along the way. Someone will say we can't afford to do that. Maybe you can't. Do it anyway. Do it afraid, because that is what it takes. Like, we're all here because someone did something anyway, you know, and I think that's what it is. And I also think creative resilience requires a lot of love. Like, never lose the love of why you do the thing. Like, don't let anybody take that from you. You know, like it's life will try to take that feeling from you as much as it can. You'll get a bill for your gas, your electric bill. You know, you'll get a something will happen, and it'll make you feel like, oh, the love for why. You'll get a student that comes in and, oh my God, rips you apart. You know. Or you'll get somebody. The amount of times I've had people in spaces where I try to make, oh my God, trying to make brave and safe space, that's the most exhausting thing in the world. And these children that had to survive COVID and didn't get the proms, and they have a whole nother level of sensitivity. Oh my goodness gracious.
Bless them.
And they'll have you thinking I can't do this anymore. And you gotta always find the reason why you love a thing. When I started working, doing the Tuesday nights in the juvenile detention center, there's one kid, our very first day, he said, "Why you here?" I'm like, first of all, Mr. Man, I wanna be here. He didn't believe me. He did not believe me, not knowing that I'd already had to fight with, fight to find the money, fight to engender the support, like all of these different conversations to arrive there to try to give this service to this young man who reminded me of myself. But it was his first question, why are you here? And my mother would always tell me that, like, if I asked somebody for something and they would say no, she would go ask somebody else. And I would say, my mom's scared. She'd say, all they can say is yes or no. Go ask somebody else. And I would go, so many of the things that I've been able to do in my career, so much of my life has been about fundraising to make the art happen, even before I became a fundraiser. And it's because my mother would tell me, do it anyway. Don't let money be a reason why you don't live the life you want to live or make the thing you want to make. Do it anyway, and don't let anything or anyone take the love of the thing from you. Whatever you have to do to protect that inner child, protect that love, go protect it. Go find it. Whatever that is for you.
And to your point of do it anyway, I'm about to talk about you for a second. I'm about to tease you now and return the favor briefly. We did a production of Akeelah and the Bee, Cheryl West adaptation, 2 years ago now, during Stevie's first season. And the script calls for about 8 students. Stevie went, we did this in collaboration with the Baltimore School for the Arts, and Stevie went for a meeting with the school to meet with the students to talk about what could happen. And he came back from that meeting, and he goes, okay, so how many kids again? I said, 8, Stevie, there's like 8. And he put the entire, because he didn't want to leave any of the students out. Which just speaks to the incredible human that he is when he talks about do it anyway. Also, that juvenile justice program, him being in the detention center himself, because we did not have the money for teaching artists. So he didn't just say, let's start a program and someone else can do it. He went and did that himself. The same way he wouldn't leave, it became 19, to be clear. It went from 8 to 19 students. In that show. And that is the spirit and the ethos of how we both move. It's like, all right, we'll just figure it out. We're going to do it anyway. And that's really at the core of what we're talking about, but that's at the core of who you are as well, brother. Because you're never going to leave a student behind.
Thank you. So, we have an amazing human back here. Remind me of your name. I did not hear that, but it's totally okay. Who is going to be our mic runner. Do we have any questions from our audience? Oh, so we have two up here. We'll start with Elizabeth since, other side.
Hi, thank you. Good morning. Stevie, I love the story about your mother. I am so tuned into what you just said that I got chill bumps, and I was wondering, has that story been told? Has someone written that story? Because that's the kind of story that would help so many young people. And I also wanted to ask you, how did you feel about that box? How old were you in that box? How long did you stay in that box, and what got you out of it?
Elizabeth is a playwright, by the way. So.
I might need to copyright my story. No, this was pre-K when I got it. And it was, we kept doing that until I was just about too big to do it. So like third grade, fourth grade. I think, oh God, my mom, all six of us are so different. Oh my God, if you saw the six of us together, you would be like, y'all were not raised by the same people. But my mother speaks each of her children's language. I get really emotional when I think about it because my childhood was really hard, and I tell my parents all the time, they are in their golden years now, and I love watching them love each other and be able to experience just simple things that they couldn't when they were trying to raise the six of us. And they always sometimes my mother would always tell me, if I used to say I was broke, she would say, ain't nothing broke in this house. She would not let us call ourselves poor or broke. And as I got older, I had to go back to my mom and say, Mommy, we were poor, and that's okay. It was not your fault. It was not my father's fault. The society overdetermined that we would be poor. And helping her to reframe the narrative so that she could have agency in how we talked about how, because to try to hide the fact that we were poor robbed her of all of her ingenuity. And so, but I was maybe, I was in pre-K when that was given, the box was given to me. And because she's so, she would do things like we didn't have a washing machine. And my mom would do things where she would take all of the washing, all of the sheets and blankets and pillows that needed to be washed. We were 6 kids. We were dirty. We would play out. We didn't have TV, right? So if we thought there was one TV, and if we thought about the TV, she would give us all a book. She'd turn the TV off, and she's like, now you can go imagine TV. But she would take all of the washing and put it in the tub, and me and my 5 brothers and sisters, we'd have shifts. And we didn't even know we were washing our clothes. She would take that old powder and she would sprinkle it in the tub with the water, and she would turn on some music and she would say, we have a dance party. And we would splash around in those clothes and we would get clean, the clothes would get clean, the whole house would smell like Tide. And we had no idea that that dance party was her way of making sure that we didn't understand that we didn't have a washing machine. And so and when I tell her that, she said, I don't even remember doing that. And anyway, I could talk about my mother forever. She is this woman who, and I tell all the time, Alice Walker has an essay called In Search of My Mother's Garden, that is about our ancestors, particularly black women who went mad because they were actually artists during the period of slavery, but they didn't have a practice whereby they were basket makers and weavers and painters, but because they didn't have time or tools to excise all of the wild, genius ways that they felt because of slavery, they were driven mad. And she talks about how we in our modern lives have to go in search of our mother's gardens, the gardens that they weren't able to plant and nurture, and that how we are their gardens and we now have a responsibility to those gardens. And I am my mother's garden, and I live my life in search of it. I don't know if I answered the question, but...
Hi, my name's Alan. I do a implied theater program called Involvement Theater, which is based here in Howard County. I want to give you an extension of going out of the box, because some of the things that Center Stage has done for me when I came in the late 1970s was you were one of the first programs that gave me an opportunity to go out into the community and do some outreach theater programs. And to this day, just to give you a segue, Howard Community College, which is right down the street in Howard County, has provided a lot of opportunities for students to do a lot of the things that they want to do, open up their eyes. Even when you're in administration of a community college and the faculty are constant in turmoil. So my question is, how can you put yourself out of the box and think how colleges can lead us through this constant change? And I'll give you again the context. Here in Baltimore, it is fantastic. We're in a great community here. First of all, you have the Lewis Museum, which is right up the street, which will give everybody in this room an idea of what it was like to grow up in this community, in the black community, and how it interrelated with the white community as well, and other minority groups. But we also have situations where Peabody Conservatory of Music, which is a very long-standing community, collaborated with Morgan State University this past year in an opera because Peabody was going through renovations. And they made a connection there. You also have an example where you were out of the box, where you, Baltimore Artscape. You opened up the entire building. I was there that day when you brought in all these groups that were trying to promote black arts, and you filled up the building. Okay, you allowed that to happen. So this is just a few examples. And also Maryland. Maryland, as you said, has done so much for the arts here. They've made it part of the Commerce Department, saying that we're going to supply the arts budget here for all the arts communities. Guarantee you that you're not going to lose the funding from the state of Maryland, which is a model for every other state in the country when our federal government looks at things differently. So I'm using these as an example, but can you help us when you think in terms of how to lead us out of the box with the turmoil that many of our universities and community colleges are facing right now?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I love Howard County. We've spent quite a lot of time there. We've done some receptions there recently, specifically to make sure that we are spending more time with our Howard County patrons, supporters, everybody. And so, hello, because I can't. That's the thing I'm loving the most about being the State Theater. Is like, yeah, we're here in Baltimore doing all the work that we do, but we are in all of the various places, and that includes Howard County, where we have quite a few trustees, board members, otherwise who live out there, and many of our staff who are from there, grew up there, and still work there as well. In terms of your question about the colleges, universities, we have a couple of different partnerships that are latent and some that are more active, and we're always looking for more. So hello, we can chat after this to figure out how we can find some kind of way to activate and find opportunities for your students. I think more pragmatically, the thing that we're also working to do to continue to activate within the community in a myriad of ways, like you said, Artscape, what we've been able to do now 2 years in a row. We just had a meeting actually just yesterday about what we want to do next year for Artscape. Stevie and I both have taught quite a bit as well, and so both of us really miss teaching. I'm going to be teaching at Coppin State in the fall, which I'm very excited about. My first time back in the classroom in I don't even know how long, so I'm both nervous and excited about that. And I know Stevie's got to put a show up on Broadway, but otherwise he would be joining me. Maybe in the spring, we can talk about it. So all of that to say that the ways in which we've been able to partner with a couple of the different colleges and universities is a really, really open door policy and pragmatic way. We have a lot of opportunities for students to be able to come and intersect with the things that we have going on, and we take very seriously the responsibility to make sure that they understand that their state theater is fully open to them. So anytime we've had an opportunity from even some DC schools as well as other schools like Towson and others from all over, anytime someone has come to us from the faculty, from the administration, we've just said yes, to be frank, and have figured out what is the right size thing for those students and what is the right activation and opportunity for them. And so we remain open in that way and are always open to figuring out how we can take that even further. And I think, lastly, the other big thing, too, that we've been really focused on is we have a new workforce development program that we are developing. We did away with our apprenticeship and intern program that happened prior to Stevie and I's tenure being there, but we're working actively right now to figure out what are the ways that we can get more students in the building at all times. I'm very proud right now this summer, I don't even know how many, Dan, we just said yes, is the point. There's students who have found their way to us through a myriad of different ways, and we have just made up opportunities for them, even currently this current summer. That's how open and serious we take it, because both of us at the end of the day care very deeply about young people and the opportunities to create opportunities for them to be able to see what we're doing and to be able to get that professional experience. So,
hey, cousin, I was smiling at you, brother, because the answer to your question was in what you had to say. And I love, no city loves itself like this city loves itself.
It's crazy. And I love
it. And I'm
it.
a Texan.
Yeah.
You know Texans love Texas. But no city loves itself the way that Baltimore loves itself. And it's a part of why I love living here and why it's my home now. And all the things that you lifted up about the ways that Marylanders and Baltimoreans are collaborate is what makes this place special. So keep doing that and keep lifting that love up and that light up. And and like Kim Matt said, if there's anyone connected to an educational institution in this state that's in this room, hold us accountable. Send us an email. Let us know how we can be in deeper relationship with you all, because we really want that as well. Yeah.
I really also appreciate that, because as we've had conversations about this, a few years ago, we got a pot of money to just be in collaboration with others, and it was the hardest thing I have ever done in my life to go. And not the hard part wasn't going to the theater and saying, will you play with us? It was the fact that everyone kept saying no. And I'm like, I am saying I'm going to give you money, and all you need to do is let our students in the room. This one said yes.
I said yes. It was for my other theater in Arkansas, because I go back and forth. But yes.
But it was just the wildest thing, because I was like, literally, I don't need anything from you. I just want to give you a check.
I don't know what the hell is wrong with them other people, but Martine called me and she said, I can give you a student and we can take care of it. And I said,
I was like, I can house them, I can do everything. I just need you to take them.
And we didn't have anything going on because they would have been here. Yeah. But then I was like, well, I can put them at the other one. So here we are. Yeah.
Theater people are so dramatic. You know, it's also sometimes you just got to look at your staff and be like, y'all, it's just a flat.
It's a play.
We just painting a backdrop. Relax.
It's just a play. My God.
So we have time for one more, and I see it over there. Corinne, correct? Did I just say your name right? I'm going to get it right one day. I'm so sorry.
I always say drive a car into a garage. That's my name, Karin. Hi. So I'm the representative for the Theater History Focus Group. We had a pre-conference, and in planning it, was trying to look at like the history of Baltimore theater, and was amazed that there really wasn't much written about it, right? And there's a long history. One of the things that we did end up doing that day was meeting with the Small Theater Coalition, which included the arena players. Yeah. So I was kind of curious to hear if you've had, which was started in 1953, and it's the oldest African-American community theater in the country that is continuous, right? That, right? So, and Vagabond Players was there, and we met in Vagabond Theater. So anyway, I was just curious if there's been collaborations with some of those smaller theaters, which I know are community theaters, not professional, but I was just kind of curious.
Yeah. I mean, first and foremost, thank you for that question. We, Steve and I both, we don't like to delineate between community theater versus what we do. first and foremost. Everyone's a theater maker. And in this moment in particular, in this moment in particular, where we're all just trying to make sure that we can keep live performance in theater active, we are very intentional about being, like, if Stevie and I'm gonna get in trouble for saying this, we half the time be dreaming about how can we leave Lord so that we can be able to make it easier to actually be able to, when he comes to me and says, I'm putting 19 kids in the play instead of 8, I can figure out how to do that a little bit easier, right? And so all of that to say, with Arena Players, just to answer your specific question, there's been multiple collaborations over the 63-year history between Center Stage and Arena Players. The more pragmatic way that Stevie and I in our tenure have supported is that our master carpenter in our shop is their in-house scenic designer. And he utilizes our shop at free of charge to be able to do the things that he needs to do to support. So that's the literal answer to your question, is that, like, that's our current form of support, but more to come hopefully in the future.
Will you all kill me if we just spend a few more minutes, because we saw 2 more hands, and I would love to just try and get those 2 hands in. Will you kill me? Okay, great, fantastic. Yes, so we saw 2 hands right there. Yes.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tyrone Stanley. I'm from Morgan State Musical Theater. I've had the opportunity to work with both of these awesome gentlemen, and I can attest to the fact that they do exactly what they say they've done. They worked with Morgan State Musical Theater. We are only 4 years in existence, and one of my first opportunities, I got a chance to take them to see Stevie's now new Broadway show in its first inception. And so I just really love that. But as a musical theater writer and composer, I wanted to propose or ask, right now I know that Carnegie Mellon and a few other schools have the New Works programs, and no HBCU has one of those. So I've started writing some new musical theater that my students are actually premiering one of those works this fall. How can we get more involved with Baltimore Center Stage to make sure that we have some agency with the professional world and create something where an HBCU can hold a program like the New Center of Works program at Carnegie Mellon and some of the other places at New School. So I really want to see that start happening because I want our students to be a part of that theater making opportunity. What are your thoughts on that? And thank you for all you've done for us.
Yes, is our thought. Yes, yes. You know we love you, and we love your students. And, I think we talked about this even recently, how we're just overdue to send you an email to be like, hey, what do we want to do together? So the answer is yes, Dr. Stanley. I mean, anything that we can do to integrate your program into what we have going on. We're also at a very particular point where historically we've not done a lot of musicals, and they unfortunately are becoming more and more cost prohibitive every day, and particularly with our current union contract and the way that it's recently been updated. It's hard, especially because musicals take a lot of people and are large. That said, one of the things that I think we've been trying to focus on is within the enhancement agreements and the deals that we have with these new musicals that are coming through, we've been building into those budgets an educational line, essentially, to try to figure out how we can bring in as many students and or apprentices and interns to be a part of those processes. So that's like one pragmatic way that we're trying to also figure out how to bring more young people and students in the door to be able to see what does it look like if you're putting a Broadway show up. And the current producers for Extravaganza in particular are also writing separate grants and everything to be able to create more opportunities, in particular for queer and non-binary young people and students to be able to be apprentices and interns to watch the creation of this new musical that is hopefully headed to Broadway. So there's a lot there. The answer is yes, and we will follow up because we know how to find you to figure out how to make that happen.
And then there's like 2 things I really want to offer when we were just talking about. You should, if you can get the young folks up to see Wanted while we're in previews, I would love for them to experience, the backside of making a Broadway musical, and do a talk back or something like that while y'all there. But then also, we should just get a working group. And like, I don't know if it's like a monthly call or something like that, where our education associates and you, because you're doing incredible work there, even in that short amount of time, you've done such incredible work. But we can like freedom dream together. Like, let's find the funding together. Like that HBCU should have access to that. And I would love nothing more for Center Stage to be a part. Like, let's co-program that together. So we should just get a working group and like just sit. It's like we'll knock on every door until we get a yes. Somebody will say yes, you know? So,
Or we'll just do it anyway.
Hi, I'm Anne Marie Saunders, and I also teach in Maryland, but I work in a very different environment, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. I teach in a sort of rural college. I don't know if you guys have been in Maryland a while. Maryland, you get outside of a set and it gets rural real fast. Like, you're like, and people don't seem to, from those areas, don't travel in. Like, I only live like an hour from DC. My husband commutes every day. I live an hour and a half from here, and I have students who have like, I've never seen a professional show. They just don't do that, and so it's been really tricky. I'd love to hear you speak to, because it sounds like you guys have been kind of all over the place. I was in Texas for a while too, Atlanta, whatever. But like how you go about things differently when you are more separated from like a professional world, or just them seeing what's out there and seeing, like, they have no idea what theater jobs are out there because they only see what they see in the front, like there's actors, right? So I'd love to hear your thoughts on like how do we approach things differently in terms of access, in terms of exposure, and linking these students to theater practice when it's a different type of access, when they're just sort of separated in a different way.
So another thing that was really important to Stevie when he first came in and was rethinking a lot of the education programs as a whole is that we do have a virtual student library. That is available. It's not every show. I have to always give that caveat because unfortunately in negotiations sometimes some of the playwrights and their respective representatives don't allow us to include it, though it's very specifically stated for educational purposes. But we do have a virtual student library that includes some of them pretty decently high quality archival performances that we are able to make accessible to students for educational purposes. Recently, for our production of Holes, we just did a production of Holes this past year, there's a small rural elementary school in Pennsylvania that our board treasurer, his daughter, teaches there, and they were reading the book, and they really wanted to figure out how they could somehow engage and see the show, and they're just far enough away that it didn't make sense to be able to take a field trip in, the timing wouldn't work out, everything else. So I fought really hard to see what I could do to get the students to be able to see the show, but we did them one better, where we organized with the two cast members who were two current high schoolers, one from Carver High School, if you know the schools here in Baltimore, the other one from BSA, and we had those two young folks, the two stars of that show, Zoom with those students who thought they were the real Zero and Stanley, and we're like, sure, baby, sure. Because the teacher had them read the book. They didn't watch the movie until after they had this conversation. So that's the other way that we're trying to make things accessible for those who might be a little bit further removed. We have that virtual student library. And then again, we're genuinely open, right, for collaboration. So technology, for all of its many woes, also gives us the opportunity that if we ever have, if there's a thought for anyone, especially whether you're here or elsewhere, we will ask our artists, and most of them are pretty cool and amenable to wanting to speak to other young people. We will set up a Zoom, we'll do whatever we can to feel like they can have that access as well. Yeah.
And the virtual student matinee library also has a curricular component for each play. So, you know, you can stream that play. There's a piece of curriculum that our education associates who are really great at their jobs have designed based on the age group that you can download that packet. So there's that. We also have we have a statewide program called the Young Playwrights Festival, which is the oldest festival of its kind, free playwriting festival of its kind in the nation, and not a lot of people know about that. But what that festival does, you can go to the website, access curricular tools for that, and students can submit their plays from all over the state. And at the end of the school year, we professionally produce 6 short 10-minute plays. And a lot of times those plays are from students who are in Baltimore. But we love when we get a play from someone from far western or far southern Maryland. And what's that? The Eastern Shore. That's right. Thank you. We love when we get from those communities, and we love when we're able to program one of those plays as well. And so the Young Playwrights Festival is a way that we can kind of spread our arms very wide. The Virtual Student Matinee Library is another way. And I'm looking for funding for a program called the Pop-Up Play. And so I spent a couple years at the Public Theater, and when Stephanie Barr was there, actually, the previous leader, she ran the Shakespeare Mobile Unit, which took Shakespeare out. And the pop-up play kind of is modeled on the Shakespeare Mobile Unit, where we take whatever we have on stage and create a 10-minute version of it. So it's cuckoo bananas. And then we take it out to the far-reaching communities, whether that's, parts of the city that just people feel like it's too far, or parts of the state. We ran it in a pilot 2 years ago, and now we're resting it, looking for funding. And so the hope is in the coming season we'll be able to do something like that, so that we can get a director or an actor to go out and take something to young people who couldn't come to the city, and and have a real talk back. And the pop-up play is built in a way that they get to experience a little bit of the themes of the play, and the curriculum is aimed at getting them to create their own response to the play. So it's like an hour-long pop-up experience, if you will. So we're thinking about how can we expand our arms even wider. And like Kim has said, if we don't find the funding in this coming year, I'm going to probably do it anyway. So be on the lookout for those opportunities, please.
So I want to do 3 things. Number 1, I just want to give a quick shout out to HowlRound and Ramona for streaming this particular keynote for us. 2, I want to acknowledge that since we have some 11 o'clock sessions, we have to wrap it up, but I did see a hand over there, so what I want to do is invite this amazing human to come join us up here right after we end so that you can ask your question while we transition everything. And then 3, I want to thank you two and all of you for hanging in there with us, and thank you so much for this conversation.